If you're trying to turn around your marriage, there are 5 things about marriage counseling you need to be aware of, which will save you a lot of heartache, confusion, and frustration. Because without understanding these 5 problems, you will waste your time, burn through your emotional energy, and you will end up creating more resentment and bitterness in your marriage. Now make sure to stick till the end because I'm going to share with you a behind the scenes look on what might be going on right now inside your wife's head that is holding her back from opening up her heart to you. Let's get started. There are 5 reasons why marriage counseling fails. And even if you are currently not going to counseling, or you are determined not to go to counseling, and you want to work on your marriage on your own, pay close attention because almost all of these reasons will surface for you and will be relevant for your situation. Number 1, subconscious competition. When a husband and wife show up by a marriage counselor or a therapist, what is happening, even with the best of intentions, is that each one is trying to position themselves to look as good as possible, which is a normal, reasonable human desire. I don't want to look so bad in front of the counselor. I want to show how much I tried, how much my good intentions were present, how much I gave it a real shot. I don't want to look as bad or as negligent or as thoughtless as my wife might make me look. Even if you go with the best of intentions of, yes, we want to work on the marriage, we want to heal the marriage, but it is a very strong human desire to want to look good. There are rare exceptions where this does not happen, but it's not a good sign. What usually happens is that the husband or wife or both of them get frustrated at the way the other one is trying to position themselves and how the other one is trying to make themselves look. This is very unhelpful, particularly if one of the couple, and this is usually the man, has the ability to articulate himself a lot better than his wife. So his wife, because of her emotions, because of her frustration, and because of some other reasons which I'll explain, there's a lot built up. She may not be able to express herself as clearly as her husband, and he can suddenly make himself sound really good. And I experienced that as well. When we went to counseling, I remember walking out of the counselor and telling myself, wow, I do sound better than her. And then at the same time, there was this startling realization, what must be going on in her head right now? What is she thinking right now? How does that make her feel? How does that move our marriage forward? If she feels that I just make myself sound good, because I do have that ability to articulate myself better than she can. It doesn't mean she's less intelligent. In most cases, actually the opposite. A woman has usually more emotional intelligence. Let's get back to the point. The point over here is that this subconscious competition gets even worse once the counselor takes a position. It's only a matter of time. The counselor is a human being as well. Sooner or later, the counselor will have a position and will feel that one of the couple is more in the right, even though it's not officially a trial. It usually turns into something like once the recommendations start coming and the counselor starts pushing a certain direction, one of the partners are going to feel more validated than the other one, which feeds the second problem, which is a bigger problem. Now, I did promise I'll tell you there are exceptions. There are some times where a husband will show up and he's not trying to make himself look good, so you don't have that competitive reality going on in the counseling. He is a completely open book. Yes, I was an awful husband. I was selfish. I was self-absorbed. I was angry. I belittled her, whatever it is. He's completely open. And so you don't have this problem. But usually, first of all, it's rare. And even when it is happening, it's a result of the marriage being in a much more advanced stage of a problem, which I call marriage cancer. And I will explain that in other videos. But when you have advanced marriage cancer, some husbands show up with this, so to speak, healthy attitude, but at that point the marriage is very far gone and very hard to turn around. And there's another complication that happens in that situation. When the husband acts like that, even with the best of intentions, he actually looks desperate. And desperation is a whole other topic, a whole other complication, which actually blocks his wife from trusting him. I'll explain that in another video. But I just wanted to give context that this competitive reality is one of the major reasons why counseling fails. Number two, counseling creates bitterness, resentment, and judgment. Like it or not, the reality is that in order to heal any marriage, regardless of what type of strategy you're going to use, mine or someone else, it doesn't matter. If you are doing something which fuels resentment, there's no way that you and her are going to be feeling each other's love. I'm speaking to men primarily, so let's put it bluntly. There's no way your wife will truly feel and trust your 100% unconditional love if you are at the same time doing something or participating in an activity which keeps on fueling her resentment. So if you paid attention to what I said in the past few minutes, that competitive reality also feeds resentment. In addition to that, there are many other things that feed resentment when going to counseling. Like I said before, if she feels that you're a better talker than her, that itself can fuel her resentment. Whether she says it to you or not is besides the point. Most resentments people actually don't say. They carry it, it affects them, it lives in them, it affects their decisions, it affects their opinions, it affects the way they're going to communicate with you, but they're usually not going to say to your face the exact specific deep-rooted resentments. That's typical human behavior. They'll usually go more superficial or try to be polite about it. There are other things that happen in counseling that fuel resentment. You could walk out of the counselor and say to yourself, or she could say to herself, "You said what? You said that about me?" Again, most times they won't actually say this. But let's talk about going your way, right? Husband walks out of counseling and he thinks to himself, "I can't believe she said that." First of all, it may not even be true what she said. It may be magnified, she may have exaggerated, she may have taken it out of context, or it may just be very shameful, or a combination. And this creates more bitterness. Or opposite, she walks out of counseling and she's like, "I can't believe he said that. And he justified himself this way, and he wanted to make himself look good, and he said this about me, and he quoted me in my worst moment." And again, almost all times, she will not say it to your face, but she'll carry it in her. It's an energy, and it's real. Another area that creates resentment is you go to the counselor, and it usually goes this way, that the husband is the one that implemented what the counselor said. So you show up and you say to her after a week or two, "Hey, I did what the counselor recommended," whatever that list was. You didn't. That creates judgment on your part and resentment. And then, especially if you circle back to the counselor and he or she asks, "Okay, how did it go?" "Well, I did this and this, but she didn't do this," or she says it. So the whole scenario of involving another person, besides it being competitive, where you're automatically going to subconsciously jostle to look good, you also create feelings of resentment and bitterness. Number three is super powerful. This goes into what is going on in her head. Usually, in almost all cases, when a couple shows up at counseling, over 80%, if not more, the woman has been deeply frustrated for a long time before dragging her husband to counseling. Usually, a woman will get frustrated or bitter or empty in her marriage for a number of years. It could be 2, 5, even 10 years before her husband even realizes that there is a major problem. That is a reality for us men. Like it or not, it's important for us to face it. I had to go through this process about 12 years ago, and this was life-changing for me. But this is a necessary step. You have to recognize that in her head, again, in 4 to 5 situations, and if it's not that, it's a lot more, it's like closer to 80 to 85% of the situations, she deeply believes in her heart she already tried. That's her belief. In the privacy of her own thoughts, that's what she believes. And sometimes she may have even said something to you that has given you that clue, or it's not a clue, she said it straight to your face. "I already tried." That's not a good sign when she says it. But most of the time she believes it even way before she says it to your face. What's wrong with that? The problem with that is that even if you manage to convince her to go to counseling, or you both agree mutually, so to speak, to go to counseling, here's what's going to happen. For most situations, she has been believing this for 5, 10 years. You just realized a few months ago that she's very upset. And you're like, "Okay, I got to do something about it. I got to fix it. So you show up with 100% effort, 100% sincerity, 100% commitment to work on the marriage and to improve it. She shows up because she logically understands that she needs to and it's the right thing to do, but she cannot put 100% of her heart in it. She could maybe put 20%, 30%, 40, depends on what has been going on in your relationship for a long period of time. What happens over here is automatically she's not able to put her full heart into the experience, into the counseling. You are not going to get her full heart. Simply said, if she believes she already invested her heart into the relationship, which is usually the situation, automatically she's not going to be able to put her full heart into fixing it because she believes she already tried. That belief, I already tried, is so strong you cannot ignore that. And when you drag her into counseling, so she'll show up, but she's not going to give you helpful information. She's not going to appreciate the changes you're making. She's not going to invest her full heart, which is why in many situations which will shock husbands, they discover sometimes 6 or 9 or 12 months later that she was still involved in an emotional or even a physical affair during counseling. And the question is, how is that possible? If we are actively working, so to speak, on the relationship, how could it be that you're still engaged with an activity and a behavior which is clearly completely destructive to any potential healing? And the answer is what I just said before, because she believes she already tried. So her efforts are going to be half-assed. That's a reality. And it's important to recognize and respect it. And dragging her through counseling only covers up the problem, but the core belief inside her head, in her brain, the place where she makes all her decisions, will not change. And on the contrary, it just aggravates her because of the issues I said before, the continued resentment, the competitiveness, the feeling suddenly that the counselor swung to your side because you sound more reasonable, you sound more fair, you sound more committed. If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when a new video comes out. Number 4, women have a natural belief, even before serious marriage problems set in. This is even in the earlier stages of marriage cancer. Like I said, I will explain marriage cancer in a lot of depth and detail in other videos. But even in the early stages of, let's just say, marriage problems, women have a desire that the husband should know what to do. She doesn't want to explain to you everything. She wants to be able to speak in code. She wants you to remember things she told you years ago. She wants you to know how to apply it on your own. She wants you to have the intuition, the awareness, the skills, the confidence that you should know. You're the man. You should know. I shouldn't have to explain it to you. And sometimes she may have even said those words to you. I don't want to tell you everything. But like in most cases, women usually do not say everything that's running through their head, particularly when they're upset at you. So they'll pick more superficial issues, which I'll get into in just a couple of minutes. Now, this is very important to understand. Because she believes, number 3, I already put my heart into it. Now you decided to wake up, so I have to try again. And because she feels you should already know, that again feeds the problem of she's not going to put her full heart into it. She's not going to appreciate the effort and the changes you're making. And you're not going to get the feedback, the input from her necessary to confirm you're on the right path and to encourage you to continue on that path. And eventually, this is going to wear you down. And these things are relevant even if you don't go to counseling, like I said, because the resentment, well, the resentment too, there's resentment being built up when she sees you're trying so hard but you're late. Because when she believes she already tried and that you should figure it out, and then she sees you trying so hard, it actually creates more resentment for her because it creates feelings of like, why now? Why did it take so long till you tried? And again, the same things like before. She's not going to put her full heart into it. She believes you should know. So she's going to pick superficial things, which is why lists don't work. Ask yourself, did it ever happen to you that you were in a situation where you can see that there was tension, there was disagreement, there was frustration, and that you had to make changes? And you sit down with her and you say, okay, Sarah, what changes need to be done? And she gave you a list of things. And officially, she said, if you follow this list, things should be okay. I should be more open to you. We will have a better relationship, better connection, better communication, healthier intimacy, more trust, more respect, all the good things that come with a great marriage. And then you go ahead and you do that list, only to discover a few weeks or a few months later that she just changed the list. And now she says, you know what? Okay, no, it's other things that need to be changed. Or she blames you for not doing the list correctly. You didn't do it the right way. You have to make this tweak. Did it ever happen to you? How many times did it happen to you? Ask yourself that question. Now, if you're like a typical marriage that is having some real struggles, that has happened many times, which means the lists don't help. So let's recap this. In both situations where she believes she already invested her heart and where she wants you to know it, or she has a deep belief that you should know what to do, or you should have known what to do, when you drag her through the process of counseling, it actually aggravates her because she's not able to invest her full heart into it because she doesn't want to. Simply like that. She believes she already did. You cannot ignore that point. She believes she already put her heart, her time, her hopes, and her dreams into the relationship for a long time before you. And that point that I just said for the past 10 seconds is critical. Number 5, she is not able to identify fundamentals. Marriage counselors cannot do it. Therapists cannot do it. Your wife cannot do it. What does that mean? In every situation where a human being is in pain, let's take an example of in a marriage, your wife served you divorce papers. Every person with basic common sense understands that your main problem is not the divorce papers. The main problem is what led to it. But it is very easy to get sucked into the drama of how to deal with the divorce papers, how to respond, how to change her mind, when that is really not the main problem. It is the result of the problem. That is a symptom. It's not a cause. And I call it fundamentals. There are the fundamental areas that are creating the problems in your marriage or the symptoms in your marriage. And then there are the symptoms. And when you go to counselors, they get stuck on the symptoms. She gets stuck on the symptoms, and so do you. And it is very important to understand the difference. And then there are different types of symptoms that get more and more confusing. For example, a lack of intimacy can sometimes be seen as a fundamental problem. The reality is, in most marriages, the lack of physical intimacy is actually not the main issue. It's actually a symptom of a deeper rooted problem. Now, this itself is an entire topic. The point over here is, even if she wanted to put her full heart in other words, even if the previous 2 points were irrelevant, and she said to herself, I really want to put my full heart into this relationship. She didn't just say it to you, because she could always say it to you. I'm talking about she actually said it to herself, right? That's the most important thing, is what she says to herself, because she could say anything to you, which is, say a lot of things which are not true. That's what happens in painful marriages. The problem is she's not able to identify fundamental. Why is that? Because in order to identify fundamentals, you really have to understand a lot of things. One of them, for example, is feelings. Feelings are confusing. They're confusing to men. They're confusing to women as well, believe it or not. And it's hard for a person to figure out what feeling is covering which other feeling. It's an entire topic on its own, maybe a little bit too advanced. But the point over here is counselors tend, without realizing it, to magnify the problems of the symptoms. They'll focus on, okay, here's how to communicate. Here's how to resolve this issue. But they're not able to get to the fundamental issues that have been creating the bitterness, the disconnect, and the resentment over years. Now, there is a process of understanding fundamentals and symptoms, and I have another video which I'm going to put under this video for you to click on so you can actually start that process, the difference between fundamentals and symptoms, and how to see it in your marriage. But for right now, you got to understand, you've already started the process of understanding fundamentals. This idea that what's going on in her head, her secret beliefs that she already tried, is an example of a fundamental. Now, it's a fundamental on a beginner level, and there's a lot more to learn. And like I said, under this video, you'll see a link to another video that's going to help you go a lot deeper in understanding fundamentals and symptoms. But the point over here is, after these 5 things, the obvious question is, okay, how do I turn around my marriage if I can't involve her? And I gotta say another point. Essentially, the idea that it takes two people to work on the marriage at the same time in order for the marriage to heal is absolutely false. It's not true. It's categorically not true. For the reasons I just said. For the bitterness that it creates, for the fact that she already believes, she already put her full heart into it, and therefore she will not put her full heart into it again. Not in the beginning. Not until she sees some significant change on your part. Now, eventually, is there a stage where you can and should involve your wife in the marriage transformation process? Absolutely, yes. But counselors and even men who are working on their marriage on their own always involve the wife way, way early, very prematurely. And at that point, it is useless for the reasons I explained to you, and also damaging because it creates more resentment, bitterness, and frustration, not just for her, but also for you, because it eventually wears you down. So, of course, there's a time and a place for marriage takes two, but that is once you have made that breakthrough, that major breakthrough between you and her heart, between your hearts, at that point you can involve her. But in the beginning, the process you need to use is one that bypasses the need to involve her strategically, and you have to be able to get feedback and accurate information and guidance on what to do without talking to her. So the obvious question is, how do I do that? So the next step is to start studying the videos of fundamentals and symptoms. That video is going to help you understand what are the main areas that might be causing the main complications and distress in your relationship. So go ahead, click that video.